Hi guys, so I'm going to hand the floor over to my husband Clint for this one because he is the expert. He's been in the refrigeration and air conditioning trade for 26 years now, so he knows what he's on about. I'm just going to be sat here for decorative purposes and to make sure he doesn't get too jargony on you, because he can go off on a tangent, trust me. What we're going to be going through is our setup that we've got in our house with our heat transfer system. I'll show you our house plan and how we've got it all set up and what works for us. We'll also give some advice on how to properly use a heat pump, what's the most energy efficient way to use it, that sort of thing. What some common problems are that you may encounter when it comes to your heat pump, your air conditioning, your heat transfer, whatever. And also just advice for getting quotes, what to look out for. Now we're actually going to follow up this video if you've still got questions after watching this, or if not, if you just want to, you know, tune in for the sake of it, you're more than welcome. Next Friday, the 29th of May, keep an eye out. We're planning on scheduling another live stream Q&A where Clint is going to be more than happy, because we've been encountering a lot of questions. Let us know, put some questions down below, because we can always pre-prepare for these questions if he knows what's coming, or just ask away on the Facebook page, and yeah, we'll catch you then. What are we chatting about?
Heat transfer systems, which is sort of within my realm because I do air conditioning and refrigeration, and many of the pitfalls that come with it, and some of the most frustrating things I have is people set up heat transfers and the duct sizes are too small, or they get a electrician to put one in and they just get what would be a good unit for a small house and put it in a large house and charge someone 5 or 6 grand when they can get 5 or 6 grand and they could put a real good system in. Maybe during the live stream I'll come up with some brands and some good companies which I sort of trust, you know, that we can that I can mention, because there's a difference between heat transfer and was it when you pressurize the house to keep the moisture out?
Dehumidifying?
No, there's a way. It's you mix. You take the warm air and the return air and you mix in a certain percentage of fresh air, so your house is constantly pressurized inside, and all the rooms are equally pressurized, but it's a greater percentage of pressurization compared to the outside world, so it always pushes the moisture out. And it's really good if you're in swampy houses, and that's one of the things that a lot of the companies specialize in, supposedly, but it's something that so many companies that should know better get wrong, or they'll charge you $5,000 to $6,000 and they won't actually fix the problem because they'll add too much fresh air in for heating. And that's fine if it's in summer, but come winter you want heat transfer, and I think the best system to put in with a heat transfer kit is with a fireplace. You know, like we've got a nice little fireplace that puts out 25 kilowatts worth of heat, which is enough to do the whole house, but it's spreading it around the house. So I built my own for about $1,750. I've just gone and actually priced everything up, and that is a price that you should be able to get. We won't drop the supplier's name just here, we might leave that for the live stream, but you should be able to go on the website, put together everything that you want, and actually, or even go into them and give them your house plans, and they'll tell you what you should need, and they will give you the you know, straight off the street price to do what I've done here is about $1,750. Now what I've done with my system is I've taken 2 return ears, one from just above the fireplace and 200ml.
Now return air is where it gets sucked in.
Sucked in, yep. 200ml from above the fireplace and above, just off the kitchen, so it can get all the hot air from when Sarah's doing her baking every day. And so the doors close. I've actually also put a return air in the washroom. Washroom? What's the wet area? Tiled area now?
Yeah, between the laundry and the bathroom sort of thing.
Yeah, and what that also does, it helps mix the cold air from the other side of the house in with the warm air. So then that's 200, so we've got 200, 200, 200.
200 millimetre width
ducts, all going into being pushed through a fan, and that's going down to the opposite end of our house through a 250mm duct, which is at the in front of our bedroom, so it equally goes into the hallway and spreads it heat out quite nicely to my bedroom. The kids' rooms warm up quite well. And at the other end of the house, I've got a 200mm duct, which is supplying a certain amount of air per fan speed into our computer/media room, where we like to sit and watch the movies. We like to be nice and toasty warm there, and it all flows through the house, back through the return ears, mixes everything, and then puts it back out. So we're constantly getting that warm air. And the return in the laundry, actually, it sort of mixes the cold air with the warm air from here, and we get a lot of good flow. And the other thing is, you got to be careful as well that if you're pressurizing a room, like we want to be able to close the door in the lounge quite often because it's warmer in here. But if we didn't have that extra return air there, we would never be able to close the door because the air is always seeking to return to the return ears. And so what happens if we didn't have that in, it would actually keep on popping the door open. And we've actually got a filter on that one. And I know when we have to clean the filter because we can't close the door, it starts popping open. And all we have to do is we have to clean the filter, and that stops it. And that's sort of because our return ears were originally hooked up to an air conditioning system as well. I made a really complicated system, and yeah, so we filter all the dust and everything through the air to try and keep the air cleaner as well. And that's one of the good things that air conditioning units do, is it actually filters and cleans the air, and it helps people. Not that we have any asthmatics in this house, no. But if you did, that would be another bonus why you'd want to put filters on it, because it does help with allergies and stuff.
Well, your mum had trouble with that, didn't she?
And that's one of the...
She had an aircon put in her bedroom.
Yeah, just for that, basically, and that cleaned the air so much that her allergies actually went away. So, yeah, so there's pros and cons why you put things in. And then you'll see the little fan speed controller. That's just the cheapest, simplest fan speed controller that you can get. The amount of amperage it draws, the 250mm fan, is that low that we were able to take it off the lighting circuit, because we've got 6 amps, 10 amps on this lighting circuit, and it only does the lounge. So we've switched to LED, so it only draws 1 amp. So
it costs to run the sort of the fan and stuff. Do we know that, or?
Yeah, didn't we work it out at 8 cents a day?
It was cents a day. It wasn't dollars a day.
Yeah, it was cents. I actually did sit down, but you must remember this is 2-3 years ago. We sat down. I worked out the amperage. I worked out the cost, and it was something like I don't think it was either. It was 7.95 cents a day to run a fan at 3/4 speed with the amperage. So. And
we generally have it turned down pretty low. And actually the position of that, because we've got it, because our bedrooms are sort of, they all come off the same kind of point at the hallway, so it just warms right in the middle of those bedrooms. Now, we actually had someone sleeping in our computer room once.
Oh yes.
Our friend Andrew came to stay, and he actually claimed it got way too hot because we've got one of them going into the computer room, and he actually claimed it got a bit too hot with that going. So I suppose that's something to consider as well. If you're not comfortable sleeping with a heater in your room or an air conditioner, same story with a heater fan, you might be better off putting it slightly outside the bedroom, or So here we are in the roof, as you do. You'll notice the insulation, we've actually got it over the boards and everything, because the insulation in your ceiling will actually start sort of,
compacting.
What's the word? Compacting. And it's a good idea to try and cover that up if you can with, whatever kind of fluff you can get. It makes a huge difference to the amount of heat escaping out through your roof.
Yeah, it did make a huge difference, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was, and this is actually stuff out of old ducting, but you can actually buy this in 6-meter long rolls. And guys will actually do a whole ceiling in half a day. They do it real quick.
So we've actually still got the old insulation in there, but it's under all this stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely worth doing. I mean, this looks like patchwork because even though it's cheap enough to buy the big rolls like I said, I'm really tight, and I actually went skip diving and got all the old ducting out of the bins from the jobs I was on, and then gutted the ducting and repurposed it instead of having it go to landfill. That duct there is our 200mm return, and this here is our 200mm supply into our video room. And I've actually used a bit of solid, but normally I'd just use flex. It's just that I got the solid for free. The warm air comes through here into this T section here. This here is the duct coming from above the fireplace. This here is the balancing duct with a damper in here, so so we're taking air of the laundry. And then this is coming from the other side of the kitchen. This one here.
Is that hay just what birds have put in here?
Yep, that's just from last year, because guess what? I cleaned that all out 6 months ago. Which could be another video, bird proofing your house. Yep, stay tuned people. And this here goes into a, what was it, 3-way T, so that's 200, 200, 200, all going into a T, and that's all warm and cold air mixing, and then it gets sucked through this 250mm commercial fan, which I got. And you see the power point there? That power point is not actually a proper power point. That's actually fed off the lights. I just had to get an electrician just to drop the cable into the lighting circuit, because the lighting circuit could handle it, because it's only LEDs and they do nothing. That 200mm then goes off down there, and if you see all the way down to the bottom, 250mm supply end where all the hot air comes out in the hall, and then it circulates back through down the hallway and mixes up and just keeps recirculating. And you notice I actually use insulated ducting. You see a lot of these cheap sets, they'll just have nude ducting, not insulated at all, and that really irks me, because the longer you run, the more heat energy you lose. See, like on this ducting here, I've used solid strap, I've used expensive strong sturdy cable ties to prop it up on. I've seen a lot of electricians just use cable and just do knots and tie it off, or string, and then the string rots out and breaks, and that just irks me. If you've got a heat pump, most people, companies when they do it, will size a heat pump for the area it does. And so if we were putting one here in the lounge, we would size it to do this area, not necessarily the rest of the house. So that's why a lot of companies will put one in the lounge, and they'll put a booster that runs all the way, that's in the hall, that runs all day and all night. You know, if you've only got one heating source, especially a 6 kilowatt heat pump that would do this area, as soon as you turn on a fan and a heat transfer kit, then the next problem is you now need to triple the amount of kilowatts required to heat your house, and that will never truly do it. And the saving of a heat pump is when it gets to within 3 degrees, it no longer works at 100%, so it just constantly tops up that temperature, and that's where you save your money. And if it's having to run at 100% all the time, your power bills, it's not going to be $90 to heat that space, it's going to cost you $400 to heat that whole house. We've actually had that happen, was we actually had someone stick a heat exchanger unit inside a ceiling, which is great, because to bring fresh air in, mix it with the warm air, and what they'd done is they didn't put a reheat on it, and they didn't get the balance of how much fresh air coming in correct, and these people had their bill jump from $320 a month to $780, and the company that came and put the heat transfer kit blamed my company for a faulty heat pump. But the heat pump had been in for 2 years and it worked great. And they said no, there's now, and these people were adamant that there was a fault with the heat pump, but it wasn't. It was, they were adding, was it 200 litres of air a minute at -2 from directly outside, and they were freezing, and the heat pump was just going at 100%, and it couldn't handle it. That's one of the other things. And now going up into the ceiling, you'll probably see us going into the ceiling at some point. You can see how I've hung all the ducting and what it looks like, and you notice all the white stuff. That is an extra layer that I put all throughout the house, and we actually had a downlights that had holes in them. If you want to make your house cheaper to heat, if you've got the old-fashioned downlights, which people were still putting in.
Actually, we've got a video on that, installing LED lights, and we actually took the old one out and showed the space around the, I just remembered about that, the space around the insulation. Check
out here, yeah, we'll put a video up here. Now, we added up all of those lights. It came to, what was it? Almost a square metre of direct hole to atmosphere that you have to heat.
Because we go up into our ceiling and it's not warm up there, it's cold.
No, it came to like almost a metre of open roof space, venting straight into the atmosphere. And there's certain companies out there that say, take the warm air from your roof during winter to heat your house. There is no warm air.
It's cold. Unless somehow you've got insulation.
No.
By your roof tiles or something weird like that, but it's
99.99. Nah, just doesn't work like that.
So yeah, we got those LED lights where we can put the insulation straight over.
Straight over, and the other thing is, over time, your insulation actually compacts and loses its thermal value over the years, and it actually, when they tuck the
pink bats or similar.
Pink bats into the rafters, they're supposed to tuck it up that hard that there's no gap there. And if they haven't done it correctly, or you've been up there yourself and you've been kicking around and it peels away from the stud, you actually can lose up to 20% of your thermal protection just through that. And over time, it actually our stuff has shrunk. And we didn't have pink bats, we had something else weird, didn't we?
I think it was yellowish coloured, wasn't it?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything before or since, but that was what was supplied, and it's actually shrunk. So I actually went and got some of the same stuff that we put in the bats, which is really cheap. That's something that perhaps even before putting in a heat transfer system, you potentially, or even a heat pump, is that's what you want to look at, because 12% of your, if you're using the old type of lights, they were saying it's like 12% of your power bill is lighting. So if you change out all your lights for LEDs, that's going to drop that down to 1/10 of what it was for lighting, and then you're also going to save on heating because you don't have those great big holes in the ceiling anymore.
The one thing that kind of amuses me about that though, the LED lights, our children are going to grow up not knowing how to change a light bulb.
Yeah, that's so funny. That is.
Is it cheaper to leave your heat pump running all the time or to turn it off and on?
And that purely depends on how good your insulation in your house is.
Yeah, it depends on your house and on the size of your heat pump.
If your heat pump is inadequate for the size of the room, then yeah.
You better just to turn it off and on.
Yeah. If it's an older style house that does not have good insulation, and if you don't use curtains or you don't have insulated glass, there's no insulation in the walls, then you might as well just turn the heat pump on and sit underneath it while you're watching TV, and turn it off and have a hot water bottle in bed.
Yeah.
That's basically, there's no.
If you got a decent heat pump with a reasonably modern, well insulated house, then it is cheaper to leave it on all the time.
And we found that out the hard way, didn't we, love?
Oh yeah, I was a non-believer.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we did have the heat pump, we just turned it down to like 16 degrees at night time.
Yeah.
And then just cranked it up a couple more degrees during the day.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is, some heat pumps after 5 or 6 years, they don't like being turned on a frosty morning, especially if it's real cold. and there's one particular brand which I won't mention here that is particularly bad for that, and it's fine in the North Island, but once you start getting out of Christchurch and into the country,
when it gets into the negatives overnight,
and
it gets really frosty or potentially snowy.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then you leave it on. But purely, it's down to the insulation in your home. That's one of the first big factors you should look at before putting in the heat pump.
If you're getting a company to quote for putting in an aircon, just bear in mind they could be trying to quote a cheaper price to get the install, and they could be undersizing the heat pump, so it could end up costing more.
This is actually another video all on its own, but we'll touch on it because it is a genuine concern that the way because I'm always brutally honest. I always size it 20% bigger than it has to be, because if it drops to 0, a lot of units will actually lose 30% of their capacity, and if it's already borderline not big enough when they put it in, as soon as you get cold, it's not going to work. And I actually worked for a company quite some time back that actually did do that, and that was part of the reason they were moving so many units, was that at the time all the older boys who were in the office, this is over a decade ago, used to do things by the book, and then all these other people came in who weren't exactly engineers themselves, or weren't cut out for actually doing the work, were doing the sales, and they learned that their sales numbers were more important than anything else. What they were doing is, instead of putting in a 6 kilowatt, they would put in a 4 kilowatt, and then they'd go for a cheaper brand 4 kilowatt at that, and then they would win the quotes, because a lot of people were looking at $50 and they were going over a $50 quote, and they just didn't quite work during winter. And the amount of times I would go to a house and say it's just not working, and you check it and it is running at 100%, and that was the problem. It was running at 100%, and all the coil temperatures were correct, the gas pressures were correct, but it just wasn't putting out what it was rated to do, because it was too cold and it couldn't. And plus, a lot of people were saying, oh, we want to put it there. And one of the things that should really, this is the outdoor unit, we want to put the outdoor unit there. And you say, well, sorry, you can't put it there, we should put it around the corner. I don't want it anywhere near the bedrooms. Well, then we have to put it out the front of the house. No, I want it there. The other person said I can put it there. I said, well, okay then, but it's on you. And then they'd come back, and what would happen is it would be hard up against the fence with less than a metre of air circulation, and they would just and there's reasons why good engineers will say, you can't. There's quite a few companies out there that I would just not trust.
We won't go naming names, because Clint being in the line of work, he's kind of got to be careful.
I've got to be careful, but every time I do a house, there's different calculations that you use.
It depends on roof height, window size, all that sort of thing, doesn't it?
And a lot of these salesmen just go and say, oh yep, this will do this, and I always do the maths. And one of the other things to mention is that when you go and buy some of these units, I've seen electricians put in a lot. They'll go to proper ventilation companies, and they'll buy the kits, and they won't actually put return air systems in. And one thing which really annoyed me a year or two ago is I actually got contracted to put one in, and they had 150mm duct, and it went the entire length of a house. The further the duct run and the smaller the duct, the more impediment on airflow you're going to have, and also the more sound it's going to make. Because if it's trying to push, it's like a small pipe can a small hose with high pressure, it makes a noise, but a big hose with the same amount of volume of water will make less noise. And that's the same with a duct. So if you've got a small duct with a high speed fan, you'll hear it. You can get sound effects, she'll get proper sound effects. And you can hear it. I went for a bigger duct so I could shift more air quietly and have more air changes per minute. And if you get a small 150 duct, you know, because they do sell kits for $900 that are made for like little houses, and then they just say, oh, buy an add-on kit for $110, which is a bit of a rip. But the $110 and this and the Y piece, and then you get what do they call those things? Each room, they'll put a switch on each room so you can put the heat directly into each room. You can have that on full speed, and it will take forever to heat that room up because it's only a little 150 fan split into 4 ways, and some of them be, 18 meters long will be the run, so you've got all that airflow and it will just be next to nothing. Or alternately is mum and dad won't be at home and one of the kids will be at home and the fire will be going, and they'll turn the other 3 off and it will howl like, you know.
Yeah.
And that's really annoying. So I was going to put a duct vent into each room, but the other thing is, because the doors open into the rooms, if the fan pressure is actually too great, and I have had this happen, I've walked into someone else and they've hit up the builders and they didn't know what was going on wrong, but they'd leave the fans running overnight, and this old lady got up out of bed in the morning and she couldn't open the door. And the reason was, it was only a 150mm duct with a supply in 2 rooms, and she had a heat pump running, or I think it might have actually been an LPG fire. So anyway, she had it running and she couldn't open the door. The doors were really stiff, and then the builders were going there, there's nothing wrong with your doors. And then for some reason I was in there for something else, and I realised exactly what it was, is that when she had her fans on, it was fine for 10, 15, 20, but the pressure would build up, and because it was a new house, the air wasn't going that far, and she couldn't open the doors in the morning until her daughter came around to rescue her. So, you know, there's all those sorts of things there that you've got to look out for. So if you're ducting into each room, you've actually got to have the door has to be cut a bit higher, which is actually how these people actually solved it. And but then the doors started whistling, so they actually, because what happened was it worked fine, and then they put carpet down, and the carpet made a real good seal on the door. So they took a 1/4 inch off the bottom of the door and put it back on. And then the daughter was complaining that she could hear her whistling when she walked past the door. So, but that was when the fan speed was on high. But the way that these people were using it was, okay, we're going to bed now, let's take our pills, and then they'd turn expecting it to heat the room up in 5 to 10 minutes. And so they'd leave the fan on, go up into bed, and the room would warm up, so it was nice and warm in the morning. But yeah, as we sort of do the opposite, we sort of turn our fan on.
We heat it up over the evening and then turn it off when we go to bed, and it's already already nice and warm.
Yeah, and then we don't actually spend that full 8 cents a day running our fan.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so if you've got a heat pump, I wouldn't recommend a heat transfer system for you without seriously looking at it. But if you've got a fireplace, then yeah, but that's one of the
so if you've got a heat pump, you're probably better off getting a smaller heat pump somewhere else. Live stream on Friday. I'll send a notice out on my Facebook page or something, and feel free to hop on. Any questions, even if it's not about heat transfer systems, just come in for a chat.
I mean, well,
make it look like we got friends.
I mean, you know, flick us some questions before the live stream, you know, during the week, or leave a comment on the video what you might want answered and why, and I'll try and
especially if it's something that you're going to want to know prices and that sort of thing, because Clint could potentially find some stuff out during the week. Do a bit of research for you, so we're all prepped.
Now I'm not saying the some of the kits from the like Smart Vent and stuff do some very nice kits. And what's the other one? There's some from Bunnings that also do some very nice 150mm kits. It's just, you've got to be careful with the setup.
Leave us a comment leave us any questions that you might like to see answered, you know, before this coming Friday.
If I can answer it, yep.
Yep. And yeah, we'll see you then.
Alright, cheers.
Bye.